This is comparative analysis. So you will be able to go in and see, oops, I'm using so many SMSs, I'm using so many calls per month, and I'm using so much data. You will be able to put it there. You will see there, sorry, I can't show you, but there on the right top. And once you've put that in, it will show you all the operators and who the cheapest is. Currently, Telecom Namibia, for this specific product that we've put in here, is the cheapest with their Java Plus product. And that's 100 minutes, 100 SMSs, and 1 gigabyte of data. If you put in another product, if you use other data, maybe MTC might be the cheapest product. If you use data, maybe Paratus might be the cheapest operator in the market. So this all is available on our portal. The address is www.cran-portal.org if you would like to go and have a look. So termination rates. You know that Namibia currently has the cheapest termination rates in Africa at 10 cents. So why did we do this? Call termination is a natural monopoly. Cost-based termination rates encourage competition in the market. And cost-based termination rates also remove market distortions and provide efficient investment incentives. If your termination rate is at cost levels, other operators are able to compete with one another. If it's too low, it pushes your competitors out of the market. If it's too high, your dominant operator will be the only one who survives in the industry. The net effect of fair competition is of course lower cost of communication, better services, and more equitable returns of investment for all operators. As from the 4th of October, our termination rate is 10 cents. Taking this into consideration, when we started looking at termination rates, we are coming from a rate of $1.06 in 2006. In 2009, this was dropped to 30 cents, down to 20 cents, and now we are at 10 cents, the cheapest in Africa. This has a direct effect on the rate that you will be paying for calls, because it's given through to the consumer in the long run. SMS is currently 1 cent. Dominance. Competition is needed. Why? To attract investors, to induce more efficient suppliers, to have a greater choice for products and services. And this all leads then, of course, to lower prices in the long run. In terms of Section 78 of our Act, CRAN has to do a dominance study every 3 years and to determine who are the dominant players in our market. Now, the first dominance study was done in 2012, and we did a new dominance study this year, and the results were then published. So this is what it looks this year. In 2012, we just used the guidelines of the Act, but in this year, because the market has changed so much over the past few years, it was decided to actually look at what type of markets we can identify. And the first market was then fixed and mobile call termination. And like I just mentioned, this is a natural monopoly, and therefore all the operators who provide termination was declared dominant. This is Paratus, Telecom Namibia, as well as MTC. And if any new operator enters the market for termination, he will immediately be a dominant operator because it's a monopoly. Market 2 is the wired end user access. Telecom Namibia is our dominant operator there. Market 3 is national data transmission. Once again, Telecom Namibia is the dominant operator there. And then wireless end user access, MTC is our dominant operator there. But we are not only looking at dominance, we are also looking at competition, because that is what the Act says we should do. So what has happened since 2011 when CRAN was established? 8 new telecommunication licenses were issued, of which 3 were issued in the past year. 9 new broadcasting licenses were issued, of which 4 new community licenses were issued in the past year, and 1 new commercial license was issued in the past year. This is to ensure that we have effective competition. Some of these were national, some of these were only local. Something else that we are doing, and this was a directive from the ICT ministers, is to reduce roaming charges in the SADC region. And the reason was to ensure communication across SADC borders to facilitate social and economic development in the region. Currently, because of issues with legislation, 6 countries are participating in this initiative on a bilateral basis, namely Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, Swaziland, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Now, what we can see over the past 6 months since we started with the implementation of this initiative, retail prices for roaming, and this is I've only done the analysis for calls to the home country, reduced on average by 19%. Data prices, and we all know that when we are away from home, we are just on WhatsApp all the time. Retail data prices reduced on average by more than 60%. And this is what happened to traffic. The moment the prices reduced, the traffic increased. And this is what we said to the operators all along. The moment your prices reduce, your traffic will increase, so you will not make a loss. Because a consumer is a very intelligent creature. The moment he pays less, he calls more. It's an addiction. And this is exactly what has happened. And we can see it. This is just for 6 months, the data. And there's a lag from the clearinghouse in the data. So we will probably see within the next year a higher trend in the data. So what is our conclusion in this? Initiatives to grow the ICT industry through competition at all levels benefit the consumer, the industry, and the economy at large. CRAN takes this mandate very seriously, since digital transformation indeed leads to economic growth and prosperity to all. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helene. Helene Vosloo is the head of economics and sector research for the Communications Regulatory Authority of Namibia. Very interestingly, the fact that consumers can actually access CRAN's database to choose their preferred data service provider at www.cran/portal.org. So I'm probably going to dash, thank you very much, Helen, cran-portal.org. So I'm probably going to go ahead and check out if I can't find any cheaper data services. Let's welcome next from Lenovo, Mr. Edward Odd. Lenovo was formed in 1984 and became a major global force after acquiring. So Mr. Edward Odd will speak on the topic, the invisible data service or data center. Thank you very much.
Good day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. For me, it's a very great experience for me to be here today. I think it's wonderful to meet many of you. Many of you have worked a lot of business with before, a lot of customers we've been dealing with in Namibia. This is can't count how many times I've been here to Namibia, but Namibia has been one of my most enjoyable countries that I've visited. But yeah, so I'm Edward Odd. from Lenovo. I look after the data center business for Lenovo. Now, today we're going to speak about the invisible data center. Very interesting on how the market's changing. So I'll show you a bit about how this data center is evolving to be invisible, right? Many of us are seeing a big change within the data center environment and how it is affecting our businesses today, okay? So before we move forward, I think we need to understand where we're going to be going, right? And I like this little analogy here. So where's the puck? It's not where it's going to be coming from. It is where it is going to go, right? So where is the puck, right? So we're wanting to look at a data center environment, and we wanted to see where data centers are going. What is very key is to understand that data centers are evolving, right? They're not the same what they used to be back before. Remember when we started in the data center days, I came from IBM, right? When IBM was the big boss in the data center space, the big mainframe, the big boss in computing. And when we look at where we've come from, right, from our punch systems, right? Many of us are much too young then to realize that when those systems were around, but that is where we've come from and where we've evolved, right? And then we've been able to evolve and move that technology from a data center space into these massive, big silos of industry changes. And what we see is, remember in 1956 when IBM brought out their first memory system, right? That was 5 megs. Today it's invisible. We don't see it, right? We put it in the cloud somewhere and it sits there. We don't have to hold it in our hand. We don't have to have it in our pocket. You can if you want. And it's massively expanded now. And now we're seeing the traditional data centers today where we have rack and tower boxes within the data center, racks of space, and where we're seeing it going forward. Very interesting to see how we've evolved and where we've come from to move. So if we look at what we see in the data centers today, it's been very, I would say, not challenging, but it's very interesting to see how we've evolved. So when we've looked at how we traditionally came from, right, from our client systems, very specific, right? We had server system, web servers, right? We had application servers for specific things, right? And these systems were there, specific applications that we would bring in for those environments. And then this company, this great company came in, still from IBM, right? They invented virtualization, right? But who sells virtualization today? Who's the biggest supplier? Anybody? Do you know? VMware. Owners of the market. They own about 96% of the virtualized environment market. It's getting very competitive with new players coming involved, but we're seeing in the transformation from the data center on how we virtualize our infrastructure. And that's how we traditionally have our environments today. And we had centralized storage with our partners with EMC and NetApp. Big players around storage. But now we've changed. We've changed even further. We've moved to cloud generation. Now this is a scary part. A lot of our customers come to us and say, cloud is great, but how do I get there? What am I going to use it for? Right? It's very interesting to see what is coming out from cloud today, but how do I take my business to there? How do I take my infrastructure and allow me to move into the cloud system? Right? When we have multiple applications that need to have resources and being able to do that. And the big players are in there. We're seeing from Amazon and Microsoft Azure, the big players around cloud that are now taking over the market, which is beneficial for us from a customer perspective. We can now start leveraging those services that they're offering. But what is our data centers looking today? They look like this. And they got a whole bunch of stuff. And really, you need specific people, specific skills to manage this environment for you. And that becomes costly, right? Where you have systems that are running almost 5, 6 years. And what's the theory? If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Leave it to run, because you don't want to be the guy responsible to pull out that plug and put a new system in, right? So you're wanting to see how this is affecting our environments today. And silos, insufficient silos, where we just have masses of data, masses of just compute, storage, and networking. But we're evolving that, right? We have what we call object storage. Very interesting concept, right? But where we're seeing from a networking side as well, when this converged infrastructure comes into play. And scalable. How many of your systems today we look at and we can't grow? We can't move. We have to bring in new environments, new systems. So very challenging with our legacy environments or data centers, where it's very siloed effect and not that it's being able to scale. So what are we looking for? Is we're looking for systems that can scale. And so Albert Einstein here, he had a great theory, right? You can't do the same thing over and over and expect different results. We need to change, right? We can't stick to what we've been doing and expect different outcomes. We need to evolve. We need to take our data centers and see what the environment is, right? And this is specifically what our environments today look like, right? Unpredictable to be able to scale, not. So not being able to have a system that then can scale, but you're wanting and having those capabilities requirements. So this concept came out pretty recently, I say about the beginning of this year, around web-scale data centers. Now, how many of you have gone to Google and Google said, sorry, I'm down for maintenance? No. Is Facebook ever down for maintenance? No. It's based on an always-on environment. And we only used to see that in the mainframe days. It had that 5 nines availability. Well, we don't need to have a mainframe to do that anymore. We can do it now with our infrastructures today. We make it seamless, where everything is interconnected from storage, networking, and server. Right? Very important, very key when we're looking for environments or data centers that are always on. Because the moment you're off, that's the moment you lose business. That's the moment you lose revenue. And that's the moment you lose data. And today, data loss is a massive problem. And how do we resolve that? Is by having systems that are scalable, web-scaled systems, that just scale as when you want to, and having that access to that data whenever you need. No matter what happens, you can then have that data available to you. Interesting? Right? So we're seeing a massive shift, right, around not only the compute side, but from storage. Right? We had our traditional SAN environments, and what we're seeing now is a lot of software-defined or unified storage. Very complex. Yes, we're Lenovo. Yes, we're a PC company, but we do talk data center, right? So looking at that type of environment where we had traditional environments of your SAN siloed environment, where we're looking at software-defined, and now hyperscale, right? This is based on web-scale architecture where we look at always on, okay? So what we have now is we had traditional infrastructure where we had our storage, servers, compute, and then we looked at converged, software-defined. Now we're seeing a massive change in this industry around software-defined. And why is that? Because specific applications require specific storage, or being able to have options around storage. When you're looking at block, file, object storage, very different in each way, but each application requires its own specific storage requirements. And then we look at hyperconverged, right? Lenovo is a great company from an infrastructure point of view, and we work well with a lot of our partners to provide full-on solutions for our customers around solutions. And we're seeing from our hyperconverged environment that we've been able to virtualize everything. Why do we want to virtualize everything? Is we want to most utilize of what we've invested in, right? Being able to have an always-on environment. But each application has its preferred environment it needs, right? Where you're looking at an in-memory application, right, or a web application, they will then sit on specific infrastructure. But you're wanting infrastructure that can then adapt to what the application is needing. So you're looking at an environment where we say software-defined anything, right? Software-defined, we're looking towards our cloud environment, infrastructure as a service. A lot of our customers today are doing that internally, allowing IT departments being the head of the businesses today. That is how we will then run the business going forward, on how software-defined will allow us to then utilize our applications to the best possible way. So Gartner's saying around this is infrastructure needs to be agile, right? If infrastructure is not agile, businesses cannot adapt to changes around application, around performance, around utilization, and how they can then innovate. Most IT teams today, they sit fixing and making sure the business just runs. What happens if we change that? What happens if we change the infrastructure, allow our IT teams to innovate, become more creative, bring out new applications? That means you as a business can do a lot more than just fix what is the problems. So if you look at the enterprises today, we're needing to look at a bi-model IT. So this is where we're looking at how we innovate and have technology that allows us to do that, right? And as it says there, the broker's code, take what you can and build the rest, right? Very key for us on how we then look at how do we move to an invisible data center. We hear about all this cloud stories, but then how do we take advantage of it? How do we then use cloud where we need to, and then take advantage of it when we want to build our own environment, or build our own application? So being flexible is very important here. Being able to then reallocate resources and being able to scale to change as when you want to. So if we look at the silos within business, right? If we look at just IT as a standard, how this has evolved to we wanting IT to be automated, right? Where HR, where payroll start to talk to each other and being able to then make a decision around that. And when we're seeing from a consumer side, how we then able to move from to social to then to e-push. Now e-push is when, I'll give you an analogy where I saw this on Facebook the other day. I was searching for a hotel in Stuttgart, and because we would have our innovation center there. And the next day I was looking on my Facebook profile, and it was telling me suggested interest was hotels in Stuttgart. Now, how does Facebook know what I'm interested in doing when I was on Google, right? These are interconnected, allowing us to then feed information to our customers, allowing us to then say to them, this is what you're looking for. Where a person in the rural area is looking at, is he supposed to be paying taxes or not, right? We can now push that onto him and say, yes or no, or this is how you can check. Being able to do that for a lot of our customers and communities. And then develop, right? Being able to allow our IT teams to develop, not just be there and fix problems the whole time, but to innovate. And business wants real time. They want changes today. So if they need more resources, how do we then allow them to grow? How do we allow them to expand when they need to, and then go back down to the smaller environments when they don't need? Being this agile allows us to do that for our businesses today. So if you look at the buy model and how it's split, right, it's really simple. Where the first model, we look at our traditional environment, our traditional data centers, right, where those specific environments are stable and safe, and we have the knowledge around how we manage those environments and how we manage those data centers. That's nice, but there's no innovation. So we need to have the buy model, which is the second model, which then allows us to explore, allows us to do more innovation with our systems, allows us to do more with our infrastructure. And if we need to, then move that off to a cloud service, if so be. So what we're trying to do here in these two models is to re-innovate IT. So take your standard environments and make it innovative so we can then utilize it to the best possible way. Then also be able to build new systems, new IT infrastructure, new solutions. And that's when we bring in those standards for our IT teams, where they not just fixing problems, they're innovating new applications, new solutions for the business and specific to your business. Right? But why Lenovo? Very interesting question. Lenovo is as traditionally known, it's a PC company. Right? We all know the ThinkPad. That's where we came from. In 2005, when Lenovo bought that from IBM. 2 years ago, to 2014, Lenovo bought the System X data center business from IBM as well. And that's why I'm here today. Now, Lenovo is now the key player within the data center, challenging the norm around IT within the data center space. So we see that change, being able to move forward from a solutions perspective. Lenovo's strategy around solutions is to work with our partners, bring our best-of-breed products. Right? We came from IBM, and nothing's changed from that from an infrastructure point of view. Lenovo's brand from a product perspective has been growing massively. We haven't changed the product, still built exactly the same it was. Right? The same reliable system that will keep on running today. And we're seeing that change with our partnerships with the software side. So we're looking at software defined in our partnerships with Nutanix, our partnerships with Accenture, Cloudian. These type of partners we're working with to then drive innovation around software-defined solutions. Right? And the reason we're wanting to do that is we're wanting to reduce your risk from a customer perspective and reduce complexity when we can bring down a system that is fully system-checked, solution-checked before it leaves plant. It arrives ready to plug in and play. And then focused around specific industry solutions. What are we doing in government? What are we doing in mobile? What are we doing in cloud? Right? Very innovative ways around an infrastructure company now being able to provide a full-end solution for you, our customers. But we're seeing the transformation around digital. Right? A big change around digital, and this has affected how the cloud space has been working today. How are we taking advantage of the cloud infrastructure, and how is it allowing us to take over the digital space? So this is very key for us from a Lenovo perspective on how we drive this from an innovation point of view on transformation of the digital world. So when we look at from a digital space, we're wanting to bring in systems that are much faster, innovated, and are realized or realistic to what the market is today, and Namibian market, not just first world countries market. We need to look at what is relevant to Africa today. How do we then take advantage of that from a solutions perspective? How do we differently design solutions for the African market? And this is what we're seeing a big change in from a Lenovo perspective. Okay? So that is a bit about Lenovo. So if you don't take anything away, just take out one thing. Lenovo is here to work with you from a solutions point of view, to be a trusted advisor within the data center space. We have multiple partners across the software stack. Lenovo's aim is to drive infrastructure growth within the data center. And then how do we then give you unique infrastructure that will then support your business today? All right? So with that, I say thank you very much. And I do have a session later on this afternoon, talk a little bit more detail into the ins and outs of the infrastructure itself. So please don't hesitate to come jump in and have a look there. But yeah, this is Lenovo, never standing still, and we're here to help you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odd. Now I understand why it's called the invisible data center. You don't see these things, but it's happening right in front of you. And I believe that to be innovative, those are the directions that we want to go into. We will be breaking for lunch shortly, but before we do, let's commence with our program. I am calling on Alyssa Amupolo, Chief Executive Officer of Powercom. She became the CEO in March 2016, a 100% subsidiary of Telecom Namibia since 2013. She is currently driving the infrastructure business, which is serving the entire value chain of the industry, ranging from MNOs, TV and radio broadcasters, as well as other players in the transmission space, ranging from aviation, security, rail, to mention but a few. So please to join me in welcoming Alyssa Amupolo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair, for that warm introduction. Good afternoon. Is afternoon or morning? Oh, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols have been observed. Allow me to take this platform and thank our mother company, Telecom Namibia, who's also a sponsor today. It is the first time for Powercom to be taking this platform at the 3rd National ICT Summit, and a couple of you have already asked me, what is Powercom? So I thought I would start off actually by just bringing you up to speed with what Powercom really entails. And then from there on, we can then get into the meet and greets and share the excitement around the network facility industries and what the new trends and innovations are happening. All right, perhaps let me just quickly give you an overview of what we would cover before I give you a glance about Powercom. We will share a little bit about the ecosystem for network facility. As Powercom, we are a network facility provider. We'll talk about what the disruptive trends are within the network facility ecosystem. We will be talking about the digital transformation from a service point of view, and we will then look at it from the technology or infrastructure point of view. And then from there, we'll share our thoughts and how we can move the industry forward in as far as digital inclusion and economic growth and perspective is concerned. Right. Powercom, as I mentioned, is a network infrastructure provider. You may recall or be familiar with brands such as Leo and so on. Those were our trading names previously. We got established in 2007. And initially started trading as Tel1 before we got acquired and became Leo. Fast forward, in 2013, Telecom Namibia acquired us 100%, and we then became a subsidiary of Telecom Namibia, and ultimately started trading as TN Mobile, briefly. From there on, then we changed our business objects. We became an infrastructure provider. We then sold our mobile license to our mother company, Telecom Namibia, and in exchange, we kind of swapped assets, really. We then acquired their towers. They had about 198 towers in their portfolio. We then consolidated that within our asset base, bringing our tower assets to about 300. Today, we're now servicing the industry, a wide range of clients, ranging from mobile network operators, namely our mother company itself, which is one of our key clients, Telecom Namibia. We have the MTC, we have Paratus, we have Africa Online. We then move on to broadcasters as well, such as MultiChoice, NBC, One Africa Television, and not to forget all the radio broadcasters. So generally, we're catering for the entire market there. Then, obviously, the most surprising part, even for ourselves, is also other industries and other players in the transmission space. You're talking about people in the aviation industry, and that's the likes of DCA. When they're monitoring the aircraft control center, they make use of our towers as well. You have then companies like Road Authority. You have a company like Transnama, because obviously of their rail network. You then get farmers as well. Somebody who just wants to put up a small local area network or use two-way radios within the facilities. So it's quite a very vast, diverse portfolio of clients, and very exciting as well. Right, in summary now, I've spoken about what the ecosystem really entails. And maybe we can then talk about it from a service perspective. Really what we provide ground-based infrastructure, which is now the masts that you see around town, and then we're also managing rooftops. From there, obviously, what has then happened is the sharing of this tower among operators. The one person wants to use it for telecommunication services, the one person wants to use it for broadcasting, the one person wants to use it to monitor the aircraft, the one person wants to use it for rail. So all these clients have diverse needs, but the beauty of infrastructure is that you can load them all on that tower. And that's where the site lease and management comes into play. So we basically lease this infrastructure to them, depending on the heights that they need. Let me not get excited and get into the nitty-gritty. The rooftop part of it, again, we see it also an opportunity, but it can also be a competition, because anybody with a height, say, of 30 meters, an operator can actually find it viable to put up an antenna there to connect to you. So rooftops are common. You would see little antennas if you look around town, whether it's Maromo or Polit Height, you would see antennas there. So that's what we're managing as well under our portfolio. Then the site management part of it really comes in terms of operational efficiency, maintenance, and the likes. And the construction part really is really where the civil works comes into play, when one of our clients would say, oh, I need to provide coverage in, what did we hear this morning? Schlep. In Schlep. We would then say, okay, fine, let's look at who else in the market would be interested in co-locating or sharing this site with you. We would then drive the construction and the civil work, obviously together with our partners in the industry, Tower Construction Company, and we'll have the site up and running, and we'll then hand over that site to the client through a lease management, and from there the business begin. So in summary, that's really what our ecosystem involves. Let's look at the emerging trends in the network facility market. There's a huge emergence of these soft service providers. The likes of Moteng Semlek in South Africa, managing Orange, MTN, not yet in Namibia yet, but it's also coming. So this is really some of the new trends where, as a network facility provider, I don't control the entire value chain and ecosystem, but I diversify my services to partnering with other players in the market that can actually manage the civil work for me or the maintenance part for me. So these companies are starting to pop up, and I guess this is an opportunity for entrepreneurs as well. Yes, the mobile network operators are starting to carve out the towers simply for capex efficiency, for OPEX efficiency. So you do find that operators want to start focusing really on innovation and other strategic drive and initiatives rather than really being caught up in the nitty-gritty intensive tower maintenance, because it's quite a very heavily costly investment, takes up a lot of capex, and yet better yet in terms of operation, it demands a lot of maintenance. So most operators are starting to find new ways to get out of that and really focus on the service aspect. Across Africa, we're seeing it a lot in India. I think this industry is pretty new. It's about 10 years. And India is really leading at the moment as far as tower companies are concerned. We're seeing a lot of developments in countries like Myanmar as well. In Africa, it's starting. We've seen it in Zambia, we've seen it more in West Africa and Central Africa. But I think it has now arrived to Southern Africa as well. That then obviously gets to the next point of sale and leasing back. Whereby the operator really get rid of this infrastructure and then start leasing it back from the network service providers. I think there are exciting times for us coming as Namibia, because we do have regulation coming up on infrastructure sharing, and the offspring of it could be that. We're yet to see what it will yield. Yes, the market is ripe for consolidation across not just Africa, but across the globe. And consolidation really meaning that instead of me having my towers, it takes about 6 months to build a tower, it takes about almost 10 years to recover. It's not economically efficient. So operators are starting to then consolidate. And companies like Powercom are then the value addition players within the market to then create just a unique value proposition for that service. There's also a huge drive towards energy efficiency. People are going green, low standard emissions for infrastructure. So green is a new motto for most of the infrastructure company. And I'm very pleased that the previous speaker spoke a lot about how they, as Lenovo, basically servicing the market, they're providing infrastructure towards infrastructure agility and even automation. So this is a kind of value that the infrastructure industry is really yearning for. And then that brings me to the next point of tower monitoring remotely. Gone are the days, really, where you would manually deploy a team in a truck to go climb each tower and figure out what faults are on the tower, and then report back, get back maybe 2 days later to the office, start looking at what materials to order, what stock to order, where to order it. So companies are starting to, within the network facility providers, remotely monitor the towers. And I'll be speaking about, I have a dedicated slide just on that, how they're doing it. Decommissioning, I think it's a common term, it is becoming a favorite one. I think it's not uncommon in Namibia to walk around, I don't know if you've noticed, and actually see two towers next to each other. Both of them actually have the same value of investment in terms of capital value, but it's simply because initially when operators entered the market, they were building for self. They were designing this infrastructure, nobody knew the next person is gonna come for themselves. And ultimately, it became a necessity to actually consolidate, as earlier alluded to, this infrastructure and move tenants from one tower to one and decommission that one to a place like SLEP, for instance. I also have a dedicated slide around that. Yes, we as tower companies or infrastructure are starting to diversify our services. We're realizing that just providing a mast and being a landlord, really, it's not enough value to a client. You need to, we've started to realize that we need to diversify a bit of service and give really a plug and play model, where all you need to do as a mobile operator or a radio broadcaster is really to come in and just plug. You have a fully fledged site, hopefully with equipment even, container rooms, electricity, and the likes. Now we move on to the digital transformation from a service point of view. I've earlier alluded to tower remote monitoring, really, that it has become almost cost inefficient to start deploying a team of foot soldier on the ground, left, right, and center at every corner of Namibia to monitor a tower. So these new key intelligent solutions are re-emerging. There have been before remote monitoring systems, but not all of them have really been successful. So of late, especially in 2016, 2015, we've then now seen a redesign of this robust, really effective remote management system. And then those systems really are being are really used to manage and optimize assets and projects as well as workflows. So now you can actually tell if the site is down in terms of electricity. You can now tell if the site is overloaded. You can now tell if there's actually a knob that needs to be fixed. So I'm not saying this is what we're doing, but these probably are dreams that we have as Parcom for the industry going forward so that we can create better value for clients. We move on to Tower Enterprise Solutions, and I think Lenovo and the Huawei's will be very excited because these are the kind of business that they venture into, or the kind of solution they venture into. We very often run into solutions, or the Oracle, the SAP, and many, many other ERPs. But within the Tower ecosystem, providers and innovators have actually started to come up with solutions just crafted to suit this business model. It's a very complex business model, and the A to Z process itself is one that is very intensive and may take, like I said, it takes about 6 months to build a site. So from a client actually requesting that they need a site, to you actually doing the environmental clearance aspect of it, to you actually starting with the civil work, to having the quality assurance of the site, to finally handing that client over and actually crafting and signing the contract and actually starting to lease and getting the client up and deploy the equipment. So these are the new systems, the new solutions in the market that are coming up, and that is really making the interaction between clients like ours and the provider ourselves very seamless, fully automating and fully digitalized. Like my previous speaker mentioned, very, very important, the site is up, always up. The moment the site is down, that means any client, be it telecom or MTC operators, could lose revenue in as far as $1 million per day. So even though the infrastructure cost itself may not be intensive, when you look at the value that is revolving around that structure, you cannot afford to be down. So solutions like this are now the ones that are shaping the industry in a much more efficient manner. We move on to other offspins. The offspin then of digitalizing this whole ecosystem means that clients can then obviously go through online site applications. They will then be able to give their information as a leasee. They'll be able to give the antenna information. Currently, we obviously ask clients, what is your load? You know, what are your factory settings? All those important aspects. So the equipment information there, is it a satellite dish? What kind of antenna structure do you have? How heavy is it? So all the things you will then be able to monitor seamlessly. Power requirement, very important. Is it 10 AMP? Is it 20 AMP? All those jargons do come up. So hopefully with these offspins, which we hope to implement in our market as well, you can then make the process much more efficient and less painful for a client. We do focus a lot more on, for instance, clients that have licenses approval from CRAN. They'll then have their frequency or spectrum use, and all those aspects are very important, and they can be cumbersome. So we're hoping that with these digital trends coming in the market, Namibia would also be a front runner, and that we can then also implement them. Another one that's very common in our boardrooms are tower operation centers. Again, this is just a digital way of making the service much more efficient. Yes, the sites cannot afford to be down. We cannot afford to delay repairs if there's a breakdown. Because it does risk put the client's revenue at risk. So the world is now moving into a fully digitalized state-of-the-art network operation centers. And this has been pioneered again in places like India, like Bharti Infratel, quite a big player in this kind of solution. They're using the latest equipment and sophisticated software to do preventative maintenance. Because the worst is actually, and that's the challenge we find ourselves in, is reactive maintenance. The site is down and off you run. So it becomes very inefficient because then you're running north, south, west, all the way. So this will then enable you to plan and say, okay, fine, if you have aircraft bulbs, of solar or no more electricity, when do they actually, when is their lifespan expiring? And then you can then plan to replace those in a timely manner, as opposed to actually waiting to be called by a client that the bulb, or by an aircraft company that the aircraft bulb on that particular site is down, which is currently the challenge for us. Yes, it is a beautiful solution. You basically get, trouble ticketing system in a central server. You can then really actually generate data and actually monitor and say, look, for this site, how much maintenance demand are actually running? Is the site maybe lifespan depreciated? Is it time to replace it? Why is this site really consuming so much electricity? Is there a particular component that maybe need replacement at the site? So this tower operations center is really now the new in thing. Costly, but a very worthwhile investment. And with these trends, we're not only looking at it from a Namibian perspective, but we're hoping that it's going to be the trend in Southern Africa as well. I'm now moving on to look at it, digital transformation from a technology perspective, more from the infrastructure itself and the hardware, because I've currently just focused more on the softer aspect of it. Yes, I see that this, I wanted to show a very, very nice graph of a automatic self-erecting mobile tower solution. Yes, gone are the days again of spending a year or 12 months trying to just do civil work for a tower. Maybe you have a trade show. Maybe a client just want to run a promotion in a particular area that may not be densely populated, but maybe it's seasonal. It's a seasonal sort of activity. You may have a Vintage Jazz Festival, for instance, where you may have 3,000 people, which is not normally consumption. You would then automatically try and get a solution to keep people connected, because people want to speak to their friends, they want to tweet and take selfies at the jazz festival. So this kind of solution, and pardon me that you're not able to actually see the bottom part of this truck that has these tower popping out, are also some of the creative way to digitalize the actual hardware of the kind of service that we provide. And the market's really proactively, as I mentioned earlier, going green. Green tower is the future. I think as Parcom, for these automatic self-erecting mobile tower, we actually have 5 of them in our portfolio. Not enough as we'd like to have, but as the market grow and as a demand shoot up, we really hope that this is the trend we're going to be moving towards. It's very mobile. You can move it from one direction to the other, as opposed to concrete towers, which once it's set to decommission that, then it's another costly exercise. It's just to create mobility, because the ICT industry is really, really mobile. I may then move on to the next slide, which again is also a challenge, but there is an opportunity and a solution. It's tower access. As a network facility provider, we would then have 4 clients. On average, our tower would accommodate 4 tenants. One can be a broadcaster, as I mentioned, one can be an aviation industry, one can be a mobile network operator. And the most sensitive one will be mobile network operator, because they're the ones servicing mass customers. So they cannot afford to have any of their equipment tampered with. So, and that boils down to site access. How do you make sure that only clients really have access to the sites? How do you make sure that you don't put in jeopardy any of the operators or the clients, that you protect the equipments that are up there? And you do get that you, as a business, we want to drive customer confidence that they can come, load the equipment, transmission, backhaul, without any risk of anybody tampering with the equipment. So these digital access are the new solutions around biometric, where you can actually have a data center where you can monitor who enters the site at what particular time and for what purpose. So we get excited when you see solutions like this, because this is what we're aiming to implement as well. And we want to prevent squatting. It is a reality that very often we don't really know who's on our site, because we're using traditional methods. You have a key and anybody can duplicate it, and you do find yourself in a situation where somebody's actually on and you don't know. So these are now the solutions that are going to aid network facility providers in digitalizing access to the sites. Then fast forward, as I get to the conclusion, sharing of infrastructure is really the future towards OPEX efficiency. I think really there is no operators in the market who would want to duplicate an infrastructure when there is already an existing one. I'll rather get on the existing one and lease as opposed to paying 1.2 or 1.5 million to put up a tower structure, and it's taking me a year, and I need public hearing and public objection process. It's a painful process. So where there is existing infrastructure sharing, and I think that's what our regulator is also advocating of late, is mandatory. It's good for us as Parcom, because we do sit with infrastructure that maybe you only have one tenant, and you're saying basically I've invested so much only to actually underutilize and not optimally utilize these sites. So we're moving towards that, and the market is becoming much more efficient. And obviously that brings me to the next point again of parallel infrastructure, where we really want to start consolidating this infrastructure and bring all tenants in on one tower. And this is what they're really calling a decommissioning exercise. I think ourselves, we have about 5 towers, which sits like that. It's again a costly exercise depending on the structure. But going forward, I think where you have two operators next to each other, the way forward is to actually decommission that and move everybody to one and take that one to Opuo or wherever the marginalized community is not connected, and create new opportunities and new prosperity. Yes, telecom tower networks or network facilities are a critical infrastructure for nation building. And we need the regulators, the policymakers, and other stakeholders in the ecosystem to really establish clear, fair licensing and processes to foster investment towards economic growth and prosperity. Because as we stand, obviously, we now moving towards infrastructure sharing regulated sort of regime. And I think that's really the point that we want to make today, that when we have a fair process, then you have a situation, you avoid a situation where each person is trying to hold on to the assets. And that happens because I put up the infrastructure to service my client, and suddenly another person comes and they want to get on the infrastructure, and I'm not able to recover everything. So I believe that with the fair licensing and fair regulatory process, we'll be able to curb those challenges, because we need to optimally utilize the infrastructures. Yes, it is possible, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve digital inclusion. And as network facility providers, we actually want to harambe with other players in the ecosystem and achieve these digital inclusions and economic prosperity. I thank you very much. And by the way, just before I go, for those who are still not clear what Parcom is, on page 69, 70, and 71 of the booklet, you do have Parcom, but we do have a temporary website as well. We'll be launching our website this week, so please do visit us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elisa. It's www.powercom.iway.na. Now, I'm sure that our delegates do have burning questions that you might want to ask. Is there anybody who would like to ask some questions right now while we still have Alyssa here who can answer? All right, I have a roaming mic. Just... One, two, one, two. Mic check, 1, 2. Can you hear clearly with this one? Is it okay? All right.
Thank you very much, Alyssa, for that presentation. I think I would just like to highlight the fact that we have seen a lot of movement coming up with what you call free basics, where you have these big companies, multinationals such as Google, Facebook, providing free access. And basically free access to the internet without having to come up with the infrastructure and without investing with all of these fibers. But all they do they have a solar-powered drone that is moving around, providing internet for people to access their services. My question then, what becomes of the infrastructure that like telecommunications have invested in? What then becomes of the infrastructure? If now these big multinationals are coming with these solar-powered drones, providing access to everybody. Thus, people will not be able to then use the infrastructure that Powercom has set up. And I think this is a challenge, and as the telecommunication and ICT industry, we have to debate and really look at how are we going to manage the free basics that are busy emerging now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lamek, for that insightful analysis on the new trends that are evolving in the market. It is true, and I think in my slide there's a part where I mentioned that network facility providers are starting to diversify into other infrastructure as well, rather than just sticking to traditional. Simply for that reason that industry evolves, and it evolves so rapidly and proliferates so fast that you cannot afford to stick to one model. And this is why rooftop, for example, became the alternative of having a tower mast. So soon, you would see a company like Powercom also buying drones to provide service and value to our clients. Obviously, we can't afford to hold on to these masts. Otherwise, we simply get out of business. So we are flexible enough, and we shouldn't, like all network service providers, be flexible enough to evolve with the market. I think we have seen companies like Kondak, for instance, in the photography industry. They weren't fast enough to move with the digital revolution. And what happened to them? I don't think you see a Kondak product anymore. So Powercom will be like that if we're not moving fast enough to leverage on what Google and Facebook hot air balloons are doing. But thanks for raising that.
Okay. I'm not sure if Helene as well as Edward are still here, but if you do catch them during lunch, then you can always ask your questions that you do have for them. Do we still have any questions for Alyssa right now? All right.
Thank you very much. I just want to clear my own understanding on what was said on those squatters on the sides of Powercom. I want to find out, just for my own understanding, how do they get on your sites? And what are the consequences if you catch them out on your sites? And then, is that not a way of digital harambe-haying if they get on your sites? Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I think those are really some of the questions we grapple with in the boardroom to say, what do we then do? It's an indication that there's clear demand for our service. And lawyers like to say there must be reasonable care, due reasonable care. Is it because of the manner in which we approve? Are we taking too long that clients actually feel necessitated to just proceed because it's costing them business? So in our view, what we're doing now is to formalize all the clients. Everybody who's on site, we're inviting them to come to Powercom and fill in a form and take it from there. If you've been on the site for 9 years and you haven't been charged, you don't have an agreement, we would put an agreement in place. I think we had cases like that. And we'll start charging you backdated to whatever time that you were on the site. Because our process did used to take very long to approve. So we do realize that perhaps we have also contributed to people squatting because they're simply not able to wait for 2 years or a year to get on the site. But it is not right. We are losing revenue and we're not able to recognize that. But the consequences is really that you will be held responsible for payment, backdating from the day that you were on the site. And we actually rely on the clients being honest with us and saying, yes, I've been on for 3 years from this month. Nobody believes me. They think nobody will come out and actually admit. But we are getting them. Whether it's factual or not, at least we're getting somewhere. And it's really just like 2%. We're not saying at least 98% of our clients do have agreements. Thank you. Have I answered your question? Okay.
Thank you, Alyssa. I see Edward is here, the Invisible Data Center. If you do have any questions for his presentation, then I guess now is the time, or perhaps when you run into him. But he's here now, so I'm sure he's willing to answer. But does anybody else have more questions for Alyssa, please? Okay. Did I see a hand back there? Did I see somebody put up? Okay, no, I didn't. All right, let's move on to questions for Edward. Okay. Well, I guess you hold on to them for the week or during lunch. I have a few announcements I need to make, very important. Firstly, I'd like to ask the representatives of regional and local authorities to remain in this hall. Also, the MPs, members of parliament, to remain in the hall. CEOs of non-sponsoring companies, please remain in the hall. All sponsors and exhibitors, your tickets for lunch are available at your stands. The other thing is also we are going to commence for lunch right away. Lunch tickets are distributed to all. The white tickets take you straight to the restaurant, and the red tickets take you to the tent, which is just behind the digital track, which is outside here. And we will resume with our summit at 2 p.m. Please be on time. Thank you very much, and we will see you then.